even know what it is. And I don't want to assume that. Everybody could be at different levels, but presumably everyone has at least encountered one of these before in their life. If anybody has not, let me know. I'll go back an extra step. But assuming everybody has, let's jump in and keep going forward. Okay. I want to tell just, a little bit. Obviously, Jill talked a little bit about AMLA Vita. I'm not going to talk a whole ton about AMLA Vita until the very end, but just an overview for anybody that's new to our organization or hasn't been on a webinar with us before. We are a total love your life coaching company, and one of the things that we do to try and help everybody love their life is these. These sorts of webinars are always going to be on our agenda. We try to hit hot button things. We try to hit universal evergreen things. Please be in our community. We love these events. We love having the crowd that we do. It's a really great community. So always check out our events calendar. Always check out our blog. There's tons of these resources. Here's me. I'm John. I'm the Director of Career Services here at AMLA Vita. That means basically everybody that has any sort of career coaching relationship with us. At some point, I've probably heard your story and I'm talking with the other career coaches. I came to career coaching after a long time being a recruiter, a hiring manager, and I've even professionally written job ads. So I owe everyone an apology. Every bad encounter you've ever had with a recruiter, with a job ad, with any of it, I was once part of that terrible machine. This is part of my penance, is doing this to try and redeem my soul for all of those terrible years. So that's where we're going to start with now. Here's what we're going to talk about today. Big high-level topics. We're going to talk about how to understand job ads. They are cryptic and weird and terrible in so many cases. So we're going to talk about what do they even mean, how to parse them. We're also going to talk about how to make them work for you. As badly written as so many of them are, they are still a cheat sheet. They are still a powerful tool in your application arsenal. If you learn how to mine them for information well, you can really be leagues ahead in your job search. We're also going to talk about red flags because there's a difference between badly written and bad. Plenty of good things are badly written, but there's some that are bad. Only after I get through all of that am I going to talk a little bit about how we can work together. I'm going to pitch myself a little bit to you. I'm going to talk about career coaching. I promise not to do it until then. And I promise when we get to that point, if you want to, you can leave. But because I want you to stay, I'm also going to bury an extra bonus tip in on that section. So if you do stay and hear the pitch, I'm going to have an extra little bonus tip about job ads for you. And then we're going to have some Q&A. So how many of you, most of you probably have a resume, right? And I assume that you've heard or maybe encountered yourself this idea of resume fluff, right? And this one is a funny little picture that I saw once that I've shared on my LinkedIn, and I think it's hysterical. How would you write, I changed a light bulb on a resume, single-handedly managed the successful upgrade and deployment of new environmental illumination system with 0 cost overruns and 0 safety incidents, which I think is just absolutely hysterical because it's so true. I've read 10,000 resumes in my life as both a hiring manager and a career coach. I have seen this and worse on there. But what you don't realize is there's a flip side to that, and it's on job ads. I'm going to share, and I want to see if you can parse this and figure this out because it's a job ad that I actually saw and I clipped a piece of. Primary responsibilities: outreach telephonically to and the rest of that sentence was current and prospective customers. Outreach telephonically. Throw in the chat. See if you can guess what the English word for outreach telephonically is. I would love to hear if people can figure out what this is. What do you know? Everybody else, all of you, you must have a lot of humans on this call instead of whatever sort of weird alien wrote this. Because yeah, it's call. But people do the same sort of fluffing on job ads as they do. And now this job ad was for a pretty basic call center agent, right? Entry level, maybe call center, maybe customer service. But they were trying to fluff it up. They're trying to make it sound more prestigious than it really is. So they changed it to outreach telephonically. So what is the process? How do people get there, right? There's this imagination, this myth, that the process is very formal, very well documented, and is done very well. That is not the case. I have been in that process. Here's how these job ads get written. Sometimes, if I'm trying to hire for a new, let's say, junior marketing associate, sometimes what maybe 90 to 95% of hiring managers or recruiters do, especially in companies that maybe don't have their own dedicated HR department, they go to Indeed or Monster.com or ZipRecruiter or any of those. They search for that ad. They search for another company's junior marketing associate, and they copy paste. Maybe they copy paste and add a bullet point at the bottom, adding something about their own company. Maybe hopefully they at least change the name of the company to their own, but I've definitely seen ones where they forgot to do that. I've seen plenty where they forgot to change city. So that's a common way. But if each person that copy and pastes it adds a bullet point, and then the next person copy and pastes it adds a bullet point, and it gets whispered down the lane. So if you ever see a job ad and it looks like it has 14 bullet points too many, and some of them are just rephrasings of the same thing, but they don't seem to have the same grammatical cadence, that's what happened. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is just guessing. People don't really have a scientific process. They're not really analyzing what the true requirements for this role are. In the best case scenario, they're going to their own team, the manager or director of the department, and asking for a few high-level bullet points. And then just like with a resume, they're fluffing it out. Or maybe they're trash picking, which means they just go back to an old ad. When's the last time we hired a junior marketing associate? 6 years ago. Okay, we'll run the same ad. Except things change. If you haven't used your resume for 6 years and you dust off the same resume, is it going to be effective? No, things change. You have to update. Everybody has a resume. Everybody, 99% of people have a resume. But just like how maybe only a small percentage of people that have a resume have hired a professional resume writer or have engaged with a professional process, only about maybe 5% of hiring managers engage with any sort of professional process and have somebody who really knows what they're doing write it. So keep that in mind. Now, I don't want to get too harsh on hiring managers. Not every hiring manager is a 20-year human resources veteran. Sometimes hiring manager means the head of a department who got told by their boss, hey, you need to hire 2 more people for your team. And they also have 50 hours of their own duties to do that are not related to hiring, and they're just trying to get it done. Sometimes it's somebody who is under the gun, somebody quit, walked out unexpectedly, and there's a big project coming up. There's a million reasons why these things can happen. So I don't want to get too harsh. I want to remember that their goal is to make a hire. They're not writing these job ads badly on purpose. They're not writing them to try to keep you out or try to obfuscate things. They want this to result in a hire. Bad hires cost money. A mistaken hire is a huge blow to a company. Empty seats aren't productive. I spent a long time as a hiring manager in the sales world. And if you look at the math, if you'd say, hey, an average salesperson, even at the entry level, is generating $400,000 a year in revenue for our construction company. Well, then every sales territory that you don't hire someone for is costing you that much money. So they really are trying their best. So keeping that in mind, that's what you want to focus on. They're trying. And in the same way that you're trying to get a job and your resume might be imperfect, they're trying to hire you and their job ad might be imperfect. So it's 2 people trying to find each other in the dark. It's not a gatekeeper trying to keep you out. It's someone trying to filter through the noise and find the right person, just like how you're trying to filter through the noise of bad jobs and things that don't match to try and find the right one. Just adopt that mindset and read these with a little bit of a kinder understanding. So I want to pause for a minute. I want to temperature check here because a lot of times I talk about this with individual clients and it blows their mind. It shocks them. People don't really think about it. So go to the chat real quick. I just want a yes or no. Have I dispelled the myth here that job ads are written by flawless robots who never make mistakes? Give me a yes or no. Does it feel like you get it? You can kind of picture a person sitting there trying their best. They're sweating. They're under pressure. They've got a CEO telling them, you've got to make a hire here that they don't know. Good. Good. I'm seeing a lot of yeses. They're kind of just like flashing up because I don't have the chat box open. So I'm just seeing each one. So good. So it seems like a lot of yeses. Good. That's the reality. So now let's talk about what the job ad looks like. And I have this little meme in here because sometimes you see a job ad and the whole thing start to finish with bullet points, like 3 lines long. One of the best ones of these I saw, and I wish I'd copied a picture of it when I saw it because this is a true story and you won't believe it. I once saw a job ad on Indeed where the only thing that was in the job ad was a picture. There was no text of any kind. The picture was of the front of a restaurant with a help wanted sign in the window, where the help wanted sign had the phone number on it, and that was it. Somebody just took a picture of that and then posted that picture to Indeed. So people are trying their best. Doesn't mean they're great at it. So there's 4 main categories, and you're probably getting the wrong impression from a lot of them, and you're probably focusing on the wrong area. So we've got a title and description, right? Hopefully the title makes sense. Sometimes titles are Twitch Ninja or Marketing Wizard, and those are weird. Hopefully there's a description of the job in the company. Then you've got your duties and responsibilities, what the job entails. And then you've got the section that everybody skips to, which is the qualifications. A ton of people skip right to this. They read this first. I hear this all the time. They go right to the qualifications. They don't even read anything else. They're looking to see if they match the qualifications. And I sort of get it. I sort of get why somebody would jump right to the qualifications because they think, if I don't meet the qualifications, why even bother reading the rest of this? If I won't get the job because I don't meet these things, why waste precious brain power reading something else, getting psyched up about it? I'm sure a lot of people do. Maybe not everybody. I don't think this one's necessarily universal, but I know a lot of people do it. So some of you are probably nodding along. I'm going to take you back from that during this. And then the last section, which is a really sad trend, is that this does not appear as much as it used to, is that compensation and benefits piece, an actual block of telling you why you should even want this job. Sadly, a lot of those are left out. But we could talk a little bit about how to find it anyway. So in the title and description, there's a couple things you want to look for that can help you parse whether or not you would even want to go further. But you really should start here. Don't go down to the qualifications yet. First off, when I say who's being described, you or the company, sometimes a job description describes the person in the role, right? They're kind of painting a picture of who this person is, what the job is like, what the day-to-day is like. That's nice. Sometimes they paint a very dreamy picture of the company and they don't talk about the position almost at all. Like maybe there'll be a title for the job itself, but then everything else in the description is about the company. Those are a little bit tougher to parse. I mean, obviously they're proud of their company. Great. They've got maybe a great company culture, but it's tough to get a feel for what the job really is from that. If that is the case though, what that tells me is I'm going to be able to follow clues and breadcrumbs to other things that company has put out into the world. Maybe their social media, maybe they're going to have a better web page. Maybe I'm going to be able to get a better feel for what people do in their day-to-day that way. So if you get to that point and there's not a lot there, that's what you want to have to do. What can you tell from the title too? If the title is relatively standard, you can make certain assumptions about, where it's going to fit in the hierarchy, whether it's going to match with your skill set. What you can also tell from the title though is a little bit about how they organize themselves and a little bit about how they value their team members. If you see a job title that says, for instance, Marketing Ninja, right, is a job title that I've seen out there. Okay, I can tell a lot about the company by Marketing Ninja being a job title. I can tell that this is probably a startup kind of culture. I can tell that it's probably very tech-based. I can tell that this is someone that is going to want maybe a non-traditional approach even in the application process. I can tell that they're not going to be really hung up on, traditional titling. So that tells me something. Whereas when I see, senior level associate vice president of whatever, I can tell that that's an organization with a decent hierarchy. They're going to be pretty structured. They're going to be somewhat formal. They're going to want to do things in a more formal way. That's the sort of company where a really weird application process might not serve you as well as checking off all the right boxes and doing things in a formal way. So you can gauge those things from that title. The other thing to watch out for, though, is the discrepancy between title and description. This is really common in sales, but I know it's also common in a lot of industries where people would sort of hide what the job was because they didn't think that it was a really prestigious title. So sometimes you do outreach telephonically to try and hide the fact that it's a call center job. But if it's a telemarketing call center agent and the title is call center agent, great. At least I know the company's honest about that. Sometimes you see, the title is something like Senior Client Success and Onboarding Specialist. And then when you read the job description entails cold calling prospects and selling them the product. There's nothing wrong with cold calling prospects and selling them on a product, but that's not what a Senior Client Success and Onboarding Specialist does. So be wary of that. Be wary of somebody that's trying to hide right from the start and trying to be dishonest with you. If that's the case, we're already starting to see something that might make you not want to go forward. So now let's get to the job duties. And again, I'm going to remind everybody, we're not at qualifications yet. There's a reason for that. Don't go to the qualifications there yet. So look at the actual job duties. This is a good point to reality check for yourself and remember the person that's writing this list of job duties is often taking their best guess at it. Even if they're the department head does not always know what the true 8-hour workday of the people they're managing actually looks like. They know what the high-level goals are, but unless they're a really, really cringeworthy micromanager, which hopefully they're not, they don't necessarily know how they spend every 5 minutes. So some things you may have to infer a little bit. But you want to look and see, be honest with yourself, how many of these things have you done? Have you really done? Forget about how many of these things do you have a certification for. Don't go down that road yet. Forget about how many things on here are necessarily provable or anything yet. Just be honest and say, okay, I have done that in some capacity. I've done this. I've done something very similar to this, etc. Because now, if you're getting excited about this role and you're saying, I've done a lot of these, not only I've done them, but I enjoyed them, I'm good at them, they fit within that sphere of jobs I want, we can move on to making it happen on the resume, on the application process. But you have to be honest with yourself here first. Is this something I want to do and have I done? Look for clues as to who they report to. Make a note of it. Why? Because if you see, for instance, sometimes in job duties, there'll be this great little clue that says reports to, and it will list who that is. Oh, highlight that, circle that, because if you see reports to and there's a title, you're going to be able to find out who that is later. You're going to be able to go to LinkedIn and look up who is that person at this company. And that's a great person to reach out to send a connection request to make an impression with, because at some point they're going to be involved in this hiring process if that's who they're going to report to. Almost never, it happens very rarely, but almost never does a hiring process take place that does not at all involve the eventual manager of that role. They might not be the primary interviewer. They might only have maybe a veto interview at the end, but they are going to be involved. It's a really good person to know. Likewise, if you get that, if you go to that person's social media and they seem like a huge jerk, you should know that. If they're writing stuff like, oh, one of my employees was 2 minutes late the day after she gave birth and came into work anyway, and I fired her for being 2 minutes late. And see posts like that every once in a while. Take that as a red flag. So this is the stage before you go on to qualifications. Stop. Say to yourself, could I do this job? Say to yourself, if there was no qualifications after this, and the hiring manager just point blank called me and said, can you do this job? There was no other question in the interview. Would your answer be yes? If your answer is yes, move forward. If it's not, go somewhere else. If it's yes, let's make it happen. Now we're into the qualifications. These are divided into two categories, and they won't divide them for you. You have to know how to divide them, and I'm going to show you how. There's hard requirements, kind of soft intangibles. Hard requirements are technology that they use that you need, a particular skill or quality that is extremely important. How do you know if something is a hard requirement versus a soft intangible and nice to have? Sometimes it's just a matter of what type of skill they're describing. For example, great team player. You see that on a lot of job ads. Is there anybody here who, if asked in an interview, are you a good team player, would say no? Nobody says that. So good team player is kind of a hard thing to quantify. So it's really a soft intangible. That doesn't mean it's meaningless. We're going to get back to that. But it's not necessarily a hard requirement. A hard requirement is, again, something you couldn't do the job without. Something that you actually have to know. I can't be a Salesforce administrator if I don't know Salesforce. So how do we tell? Well, it's tough to tell from one job ad. You shouldn't be looking at one job ad. Here's a great way to tell if something is a hard requirement or not. Go find 10 job ads for similar positions. And it doesn't matter if they're in your city, doesn't matter if they're, these are just for research. But if you find 10 of them and they all have a list of qualifications, and let's say on average they all have a list of 8 qualifications, and there's 1 or 2 that appear on every list. You see this all the time. People say, wow, no matter what, I looked at all of these roles and every single one of them required experience in Adobe Illustrator, every one of them. Okay, if you're seeing that requirement in every job ad, chances are that's a hard requirement. It's going to be a deal breaker. You're going to need to learn that. So if you don't already know it, now's the time to skill up. Now's the time to add that. If you do know it, great. Now's the time to go look at your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn, and make sure it's shown up. Because maybe you've been using Illustrator for a long time, but you know what? You never thought to put it on your resume because you didn't use it in your last job. So very important to put those things down. Now, the soft skills are things that maybe only appear on 1 or 2 lists. Every company culture is different. Everybody emphasizes different things. The real reason a lot of those are there is kind of filler. Again, not meaningless, but if the only thing that's really necessary to do this job is, well, you have to know Adobe Illustrator, and that's pretty much it because the job is using Adobe Illustrator, and everything else is just your ability to work with a team, then they're going to fill in those intangibles so it's not one bullet point. So what do you do with hard requirements, things that are there? You show them, right? You show that you have that skill. This is a great time to add a piece to your portfolio. It's a great time to put something on LinkedIn. It's a great time to include something in your resume. Show that you have that skill. How do we talk about the soft intangibles? We're going to talk about them. But first, let's do a test. So here's little snippets of lists of requirements from 4 different job ads. So in the chat, if you want to, or just for yourself, but in the chat school, which thing do you think is a hard skill based on these 4 different job ads? What would you need to know to apply to any of these? Something that absolutely can't be skipped, that you have to put on your resume, put on your LinkedIn. Great. I'm seeing a lot of the chat here pop up with the correct answer here. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. This is not really a simplified, I mean, it's maybe a little bit, but it's not much more complex than this. So Salesforce is written in a few different ways, but that Salesforce word appears. I come from the world where this really did appear on every job ad. You had to have knowledge of Salesforce. Now, the other things on each of these lists are not irrelevant, but they're specific to that company and they're cheat sheets. What you do with those other things depends on which job you're applying for. So the first one in the upper left-hand corner here, the one that starts Salesforce proficiency, team player, collaborative. If I'm looking at this job ad, well, I know I need Salesforce. I've done my research. This is industry research. I know Salesforce is a non-negotiable, so I've got that. But the other ones, team player and collaborative, that tells me something about their culture. That tells me that this company really values that working together environment. They really value maybe multiple people on the same project. They don't want people split up. So I'm going to emphasize that in my communication. This is the cheat sheet. when you're writing a cover letter or when you're customizing your resume when you apply, because you're all doing that, right? You're all customizing your resume when you apply. You want to make sure these words are there. Just find a way to put it in. Find a way, because again, team player is something that everybody is, just not everybody says, right? So just find a way to fit that into your professional summary. Find a way to write about the times that you had a collaborative cross-functional team in a cover letter. Likewise, if you look at the next one over on the right, multitasker, autonomous, and knowledge of Salesforce. What does that tell me? I'm reading this, I'm immediately thinking very little support. This is a fire and forget sort of organization. This is probably a sales organization that's going to, give somebody tools and say, okay, go. I'm going to measure you on results at the end of a week, a month, a quarter, but I'm not going to hold your hand. You're going to have to juggle all of these things yourself. Maybe a very different environment. So if that environment speaks to me and I want to be in that environment, I'm going to speak to those things. I'm going to speak to projects I handled myself. I'm going to speak to times when I had to juggle multiple job duties and still get the job done. I'm going to talk differently than I do for that first one. That's the cheat sheet. These words that have been chosen, even though they might be fluff, even though they might be filler, they're still fluff and filler that resonates with the person that wrote them, that resonates with the person that posted this ad. So whatever they think is important, you know that that's going to resonate with them. So you want to make all of your copy mirror those sorts of things. You're going to use, as often as you can, use the same words they use directly. And if you find that you're getting a little repetitive, use some synonyms, but keep in that space. So again, quick breath. We just hit a lot of stuff. We really hit a lot about what to mine out of this. So again, give me a yes or no in the chat. I'd like to get a temperature check here because I can revisit this a little bit in the time we have. But do you feel more comfortable at least knowing what you're looking for when you look in a job ad? Do you at least feel a little more comfortable knowing maybe how some of that can translate onto a resume or a cover letter? And if you're feeling, again, totally gobsmacked and lost, we could talk a little bit. And I don't expect anyone to be perfect. But once you come into it with this framing and you start looking at these job ads, I guarantee you the next job ad you look at after this webinar today, if you have some time today, go look at a few job ads. Even if you're not hunting right now or you're not ready to apply right now, just look at a few and you'll start to see some of these things. Good. I see a lot of yeses. I see a lot yes maybes, yes a little bit. And a little is good. A little better is the first step to a ton better. So that's where we want to be. Now, this is the fun part. Let's talk about red flags. I've got some funny ones for you too here. Some of this stuff is pretty serious, but there's some real humorous ones out there. I have 3 major red flags I always look for, and then there's a couple of smaller ones, but there's 3 like big ones. The first one, John Doe at Company Incorporated. Sometimes you see a job ad and you cannot figure out what company it's for. You'll see like a description of the company, but no name. Sometimes this is because it's posted through maybe a third-party recruiter, but that's very strange too when somebody says to a third-party recruiter, I want you to post this job ad, but don't tell anything about my company. There's occasionally reasons for it, but most of the time those reasons are not helpful to you and they actually work against you. You want to know who you're going to be applying for, who you're even going to be interacting with. 2 reasons. One, why are they hiding it? If they're hiding that they're hiring, is it because they have a bad reputation? Is that bad reputation deserved? Is it because they're in the middle of some, major legal battle? I know a lot of times companies do this when they're in the early stage of a merger or something like that, or if they're in some sort of financial trouble and they don't want recent news events to cloud their candidate pool. But the other reason that you want to avoid these is the real key to a successful job application is being able to do some outreach beyond just clicking whatever button is presented to apply. Every online job ad has either an easy apply button or an apply now button, and you fill out some forms or you upload something. And if that's all you do, you're going to be frustrated because you're putting yourself in a very deep pool of other people. The really best applications do something else. Remember, we talked about if you see reports to the senior vice president of marketing, oh, great, I'm going to go find the senior vice president of marketing. If you can't tell anything about that to be able to do that, you're really not giving yourself any advantages here. The next one is what's the actual job. I have seen job ads 3 pages deep that never tell me what I would do when I worked there. There's some sort of very obscure title. There's a bunch of description of the company. There's a bunch of requirements listed. And here's the real way to spot this flag is when the requirements section is 80 bullet points long, and it's all just describing really positive character traits that are sort of complementary to you. You know, like, are you an energetic, creative team player who loves success and wants to be, you know, fantastically successful? Do you want to be qualifications that aren't really qualifications because, you know, wanting to be successful is not really a qualification for any job. So if they're being described this way, it's buttering you up. It's sort of trying to get you to apply and forget about the fact that you don't even know what you're applying for. Likewise, the last red flag is too much or too little selling. All companies, starting with the job ad, starting really before that, should sell to you a little bit. Meaning there should be something that they're giving you in their job description. You know, if you imagine somebody who is writing a dating profile, and I love dating analogies when it comes to job ads, but if you imagine a dating profile and the entire profile is just, here's what you have to have. You have to earn this much money a year. You have to be this tall. You have to be this good looking. You have to be this successful, drive this nice of a car, drive all that. And if you have all of that, you can apply to be my significant other. Okay, but why would I? You know, even if I have all of those things, what are you bringing to the table here? Or likewise, but imagine the opposite, right? Imagine a job ad that talks nothing about themselves at all, or nothing about what you want, but just, I'll be the best significant other in the world, and I'll always cook, and I'll always clean, and I'll always work, and I'll always do this. And you're like, whoa, what's wrong with you that you're saying all this? Those are big red flags in either direction. If a job ad almost talks down to you, is condescending to you, you know, like, oh, if you have all of these things, then I'll let you send in an application to me and you'll be thrilled to do it. No, I won't. No, I don't grovel. Likewise, if again, it's that other thing, hey, everybody should come over here. We have ping pong tables, and we have free beer on Fridays, and we have firework displays every Thursday night. All these things, it's too much. It's too much. You have to wonder, what are they hiding? What is that compensating for? It should be a nice mix in the middle. It should be, hey, you know, we're a good team. We're looking for good people. Here's what we're looking for. And here's what we bring to the table and why someone who is that person would want to join our team. Let's look at some examples. These are all real job ads. I love this one as a red flag. What is the highest level qualification achieved by either of your parents by the time you were 18? What type of school did you attend from 11 to 16? Did you receive free school meals at any point? At age 14, did the main household earner in your house work as an employee, or were they self-employed? You think there might be some coded language in here, that there might be some things that they're trying to suss out that are, I don't know, woefully inappropriate and also totally irrelevant to a job? Are you trying to hire my parents? Are you trying to hire, what are you trying to get out of this? But this is real. I like this one on the left. It starts out, you know, a little old-fashioned, but not crazy. Hardworking, punctual, okay. Physically presentable suddenly becomes, you know, I get that you don't want to be disheveled at work, but fashionable. She must be attractive is bullet point number 5. Note that this is not a job ad for, you know, a model, actress, anything like that. Able to do modeling, dancing for social media promotions, organizational skills, willing to train in massages to help the boss relax. I'll bet they were just banging a path to the door to apply for this one, huh? Willing to train in massages to help the boss relax. I'm good at massages. Maybe he wants to talk to me. Then look at this other one. This other one is barely a job ad, but it was on a job ad board. You know, think you should get a paycheck just for showing up is the very first line. How many people are reading this and getting excited? I think a lot of times people forget that in posting a job ad, you also kind of have to convince people to come apply. there's some really, I mean, I'm not even going to read this out loud because some of the language in this is so bad, but look at just how bad some of these truly are. All right. I absolutely love this one. Small chiropractic office looking for office manager, personal assistant, start immediately. Okay, too bad. Common sense. Anytime someone asks for common sense, that means they're a real condescending jerk, by the way. Nobody puts that as a realistic qualification. Knowledge, computer etiquette, computer skills required. All caps words are also a red flag for, I mean, obvious reasons. And my personal red flag is this overuse of ellipses. I think that's a pretty major one. Do not apply if you cannot turn on a computer, have problems clicking with a mouse, or don't know how to work Chrome. No public transportation, must have their own car. It's nobody's business how you get to work, by the way. Right now, obviously not as relevant, but nobody there. But look at some of these things that I can't imagine that they didn't get sued into the Stone Age. No extremely long nails or huge earrings or really high hair weaves. Can you imagine somebody in the modern world typing those words on a computer and at no point did some, like, maybe even tiny alarm go off in their head that this is not something that they should write? It's pretty insane. So these are things to look for. And this is the difference between badly written and bad. Some of these things, please don't be fooled into thinking that's just the standard and you have to put up with it. You do not. Not everything you're going to encounter is that bad, but I want you to see these flags for what they are and just close it out. If there is one thing I am sure of, is that there are a million more job ads. You do not have to waste your time on that one. So, give me another yes, no in the chat. Just kind of check in with me here. Do you feel like you have a better idea on how to spot some red flags, some things that truly should chase you away, that really should tell you, this is not, John said at the beginning, give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't give this one the benefit of the doubt. I should really run. So give me a yes or no. Do you feel like that's the case? Do you really have a better idea of how to have those alarm bells go off in your head? Excellent. Most, and I saw someone say most are pretty obvious. Absolutely they are. When they become not obvious is when they start to run together. You've been doing it for a while. You're fatigued. They also start to become more obvious when you're at kind of a lower point emotionally, which happens. When you're at a lower point emotionally, maybe you've been looking for a while. Maybe you just had, you just had kind of a rough rejection maybe, or you went on an interview, it didn't go real well, and that self-doubt starts to creep in. I want to tell you now, don't listen to that self-doubt. But me telling you that now is not necessarily going to work in the moment. And in that moment, that's when you start to tell yourself these lies that say, oh, well, you know what, that's just the way it is, or that's just what I have to put up with in order to get a job, or etc. I don't want you to listen to that voice. I want you to say, some things are just bad, and I can reject them. Okay, before we get into Q&A, now is the time when I said, hey, I'm going to pitch a little bit. I'm going to talk about what all this looks like in real practice with my clients. And as I said, if you want to peace out now, you don't want to hear my spiel, which I promise to take only a few minutes for, no worries. But if you do, I snuck in an extra kind of bonus tip on how to use job descriptions to your advantage after this. So I love working with clients in exactly this space. I love working with clients that are trying to parse these things, that are trying to figure out, what do job descriptions mean? What do they mean for me? How do I connect myself with these people that have gotten it in their heads that I'm on one side of a puzzle, they're on the other. That's great. We're trying to match, but how? How do we breach the information gap? How do we get there? I absolutely love working with exactly that kind of client. I love bridging those gaps. I love helping come up with creative ways to control your career. What I don't do in one-on-one sessions is just focus 100% on how to get a job. I focus on how to build a career that's very different. So on this screen here, and I'm going to ask Jill if you wouldn't mind to take this, because I know you can't click it from the PDF, but that link that's right there, if you wouldn't mind putting that in the chat, because what I want everyone to do when Jill posts this into the chat is I want everyone to click on that link and open it in a new tab. And I promise this is not like a trick. There's not going to be like a screaming person that spooks you. I also promise it's not a link that takes you immediately to anything to buy or anything like that. I just want you to open up that link so that you can see what is over there. If you haven't worked with us before, if you have, you know this, but if you haven't worked with us before, just open up that link. Working with AmLaVida, whether it's for career, whether it's for life, whether it's for health, with Jill, myself, any of us, it starts with a conversation about where you want to go in the long term. I am one coach at AmLaVida. Many people that are on this call have worked with me in the past. I would love to keep working with some of you in the future, but not everyone on this call is going to be a great match for me as a coach. So if you've opened up that link, what you see is there's a calendar in there. That calendar lets you book a 30-minute phone call, totally free, with one of our relationship strategists. They are awesome. I think if she's still on here, at least one of them is on this call. I think I saw Brittany on this call. She's absolutely fantastic. They know all of us coaches inside and out. They know the other coaches much better than I know them. Even though we work together all the time, she just knows them because that's her job to know them. She knows everything there is to know about AmLaVida. She knows everything there is to know about how to work best with a coach. So if you're not sure where you want to go, but you know you want to go somewhere, and I'm going to make a bold assumption, which is that if you're attending a webinar like this, there's something you're missing, there's something you're trying to do. There's that calendar. Go in, book that 30 minutes, and as a little gift for everybody that does that, anybody that does eventually work with us, having clicked on that link here today, we'll give you your first session on us. So sign up as a member, you're going to have your first session paid for. I encourage you to go over, click. It's a free 30-minute conversation. Brittany is awesome. If you're in the chat, Brittany, you can say hello so everybody knows her. You can check her out on LinkedIn. So, she's a real person, not a robot. We haven't been able to program a robot to do this yet. As soon as we do, we'll replace Brittany. But no, there's no replacing her. She'd probably program the robot, honestly. So everyone open that up. I really encourage you to do it. If this is the only thing standing in the way of you and the next step is a free 30-minute phone call, then I really encourage you to just break over that hump. Okay. Enough spiel from me. You've got a lot of me up there, and I promised I wouldn't do this for very long. So thank you. I really look forward to all the stories Brittany's going to tell me about all of you awesome people. But I totally promised you a bonus tip. So here's the bonus tip for everybody that stuck around through the spiel. When you are looking at job descriptions, I want you to always have an open document. You can use any kind of document you want, but it should be electronic. Don't use a physical notebook, and I'll explain why. But this can be a Google Doc. It can be a Word document. It can be Evernote. I use whatever. Just have a document open that you title Ideal Job Description. And every time you see a job description, every time, even if you don't apply to it, as you look through it, if you see any single line that you think, that's really good. The whole rest of this was junk or it was average, but I loved this line. I loved this one sentence about how they described a particular task, or I loved the way they phrased this one requirement, or this particular job duty is what I really want to do. Anything that really resonates with you. I just want you to copy it and put it into that document in the appropriate section, title and description, job duties, qualifications. And I want you to keep those things over there. If you had a previous job description that was maybe 90% there, something you're really excited about, you could even start with that. You could copy paste the whole thing and then change it as you go. Every single time you encounter something new that's great, I want you to copy and put it in there, eliminate something bad, replace something. And the reason you're going to do that is this is a living document. Living document means it will never be done. As long as you are career crafting, you will have this. But it will serve two purposes. One, it is a motivational tool. You will look at that and you will align your perception to the best of the best instead of going down that dark rabbit hole where you say, well, all jobs are bad, everything's terrible, I have to settle for something awful. Instead, you're going to be focused on that best of all possible worlds job. That's where you really want to be focused, and your mind's going to always prime to that. And as you look through other job ads and you look through other postings and other recruiter calls, you're going to mentally, even subconsciously, compare what you're looking at to your ideal. And if it starts to get closer, you'll get excited. If you see something like, wow, this is really close to what I've been crafting as my ideal job description, it's worth it. Here's the other reason to keep that though. The job descriptions of almost every job are mutable. That means they can change. You can change them. Sometimes there isn't even a job description. Have you ever seen this, a new trend in many modern companies where on their job page at the very bottom, there's an extra job that just says, don't see something for you, but want to join our team? Apply. Send us a cover letter, send us something like that. This is becoming more and more common as a way of capturing great talent, even when there's not a current open role. Likewise, you may just interact with somebody through more natural networking means, forge a great connection, and they say, I would love to work with you. What do you envision yourself doing? Or if we work together, what could you do to bring value to the company? And instead of having to think of it then, boom, what do you have? I could do this. And you can just send that document over. This is what I would do. Oh, I see a company I love. They don't have an open role that fits me, but they have that thing at the bottom. Don't see one you like? Apply now for just a general position, and you can send that along. You have been crafting the whole time a job that you would be great at, that you're qualified for because you wrote it, and already shows that level of preparation. It is a great tool to have in your pocket. It's a great tool to bring to the negotiation table if you get farther in the process. You've interviewed, they love you, they've made an offer, and now it's time to negotiate. You can bring that down and say, hey, I'd like to change a few things to maybe better contribute to the team. Just a lot of ways that tool really, really helps you. So do that starting today. Just open up a document and start crafting that ideal job description, kind of Frankensteined out of the parts you like from others. Okay, that's my last big tip today. We're 10 minutes from the end, which is great. We got like a perfect 10-minute hit here. I'm going to open it up to Q&A. I have seen the chat pop up, but I don't have it in front of me because I'm sharing the PDF. Jill is going to open up, and she's been monitoring the chat and is going to grab questions for me. We probably will not get to every single question, so I'm going to have Jill pick out the ones that seem either really relevant or that maybe a lot of people echoed. And then anybody that didn't get their question answered here, hey, remember, there was that link I shared about a free 30-minute conversation and then my email address, and there's lots of ways to connect with us after that. So if you feel like you got to the end of this webinar and there's still more to do and there's more you want, awesome, here we are. But let's get to 10 minutes of these questions now.
Awesome. Thanks, John. All right, so we have a few good ones. First one, at what point should you connect with the supervisor on LinkedIn, before you apply or after you apply?
2 minutes after. I'll tell you what I do. I apply because you have to cross the T's and dot the I's. You have to have your ducks in a row, because everyone's had that, or not everyone, but I've had this happen to me. I know a lot of people have it happen, where you reach out to somebody to make a personal connection on LinkedIn or on email, and you talk about this job, and their response is, oh, great, go to our website and apply. And that's eye-rollingly bad, but it does happen. So if instead you click apply, and then immediately you reach out and you say, hey, I'm so excited, I just applied to this position, and you want my golden tip on how to reach out? I just applied to this position, and the reason I did was because I really admire your content on LinkedIn, or I really, have enjoyed reading what you post. If your company has a referral bonus, I'd love to put your name down. Now you're offering to do a favor. You're immediately putting something on the table for them. You're showing that you're a collaborative team player. So have your ducks in a row first, put the application in, then send, because then that person is going to go to their, whoever is department manager, hiring manager, and say, hey, did Jill reach out to you? Because boy, she reached out to me with a really great message. I want you to pull up her resume and put it on top of the stack.
Awesome. Love that. All right. Next question. Is it true 97% of web job applicants are rejected? JobScan is a great resource. Can you mention? ? I have a free account and they have some great free features.
JobScan is awesome. That's a real quick one. JobScan is awesome. What JobScan does, you can actually do by hand, but JobScan just automates it really well, is you post in your resume on one side and the job ad on the other, and it syncs them up and says, hey, just what I talked about. They use the word collaborative 4 times and you don't have it at all in your resume. Maybe you should. So it's just an automated version of the process that I talked about. So it's really a great tool. It can speed things up. It can help you customize. So yes, I do love JobScan. I will tell you that that stat of 97% of web ads don't even get read or get immediately rejected. That's not true. It's closer to 98 or 99. And I'm going to tell you what happens, and I'll tell you exactly why.
Wow.
Hiring managers are human. No hiring manager can read 500 resumes with anything close to objectivity, anything like that. So what all hiring managers do is they have some process of separating the initial pile, which is everyone, into two stacks, the short list and the long list. Different hiring managers use different methods to sort the short list. Some use that applicant tracking system, that keyword filter, but there's a way to cheat. The other way to get on the short list is to go around that and reach out privately. Recently at Amlavita, I managed the hiring process for someone at Amlavita, and we had 500 applications in the first 4 days. 500, 4 days. Out of those 500, fewer than 10 did anything other than clicked easy apply on LinkedIn. We only posted the job on LinkedIn. Fewer than 10 reached out to me privately, sent me an email, sent me a connection request, sent me a LinkedIn message, did the same with other people in the organization. Fewer than 10. 490 people clicked that blue button and didn't do anything else. So guess what the short list is? The short list is those 10. Now, that doesn't guarantee that if you're in that 10, you'll get the job. But it means that that's the first pool I'm looking at. And if I find what I'm looking for in that pool, I will not go to the next. Because I can't. I'm a human. I have other things to do. I can't sit there and objectively read 400 or 500 applications. So your goal is to get onto the short list. And you can do it through tools like JobScan and matching up. That's part of it. But you can also do it through tools like finding a way to make a connection by looking in that job ad for the cheat sheet, for looking for who to message, how to message them, what language to use, what's going to resonate with them. That's what you send to.
Awesome. Love it, love it. All right, next one. Job specification and person specifications. Which takes priority?
Job specification versus person specification, meaning the duties of the job versus like the qualities that you have. Clarify that question for me a little bit, whoever asked that.
Yes, I meant the duties against the person specification. That was a typo.
Oh, I'm sorry. So job specification, do you change?
No, basically, I've seen some vacancies that would list what the person will be doing and then discuss the person specification. So if you're tailoring your CV to that role, which should you focus on?
If you're tailoring your CV or your resume, you want to focus on the qualification side of things. The job duties, that's a mental checklist for you. That's where you want to say, can I realistically do this or not? And if you can, make sure that everything that they're reading about you, whether it's resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, tells the story that you can. So for instance, if they're saying every day, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be designing landing pages for our clients. Our clients need good user experience design, graphic design. You're going to be doing that for our clients all day, every day. Well, if you've gone through the mental checklist and you've said, I can do that. I've done it in the past. I definitely can do it. Take an objective view then of your resume, your LinkedIn. Does it tell the story that you can do it? Are there examples of times you've done it? Do you talk about it in your LinkedIn comments? Does your professional summary include it? Just make sure that storytelling piece is there. Everything that happens in this exchange between you and a potential hiring manager is all about a continuous story thread. Can they envision the story of your life up to this point continuing with them in a efficient way? If they can, hired. If they can't, if that disconnect isn't there, that's when you don't move forward. So just make sure that the story of the hypothetical person they're writing about is also the story of you. But then when you're qualifying your skills, make sure they're covering those things that may be deal breakers. Like we talked about the Salesforce versus the other things. Make sure you have those in there.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
I think we have time for one more.
Yes, we'll do one. Well, we have two more, but this one, we'll do this one quick.
Lightning round.
Yes. If I see a job posted on LinkedIn, is it better to apply through LinkedIn or directly to the company's website?
I'm a big fan of doing it through LinkedIn. And the reason I like doing it through LinkedIn, honestly, people monitor their social accounts a little bit more heavily than they monitor their company inbound box. Social accounts are usually monitored by a minimum of 2 people. You're going to have whoever is managing the social account plus then whatever hiring manager, HR person posted that. So you've got kind of a minimum of 2 people doing it. There's more alerts. It also gives you the opportunity to reach out directly through the same platform. So I recommend doing it on LinkedIn first. If you check out the career page on their company website, oftentimes it will just redirect you to something like LinkedIn or Workday anyway. So yeah, I recommend doing it through LinkedIn.
Great. All right. Okay, so I'll just throw this out. We have two more that have not, we have two more that haven't been answered. So the last one for just now, and also I know John mentioned this, anyone, if you have additional questions or if they've not been answered, we will answer them and we'll include that in the follow-up email. So don't worry, they will get answered. Okay, last one. What is your opinion on companies that do not list the hourly rate or DOE, I'm not sure what that abbreviation is, on job descriptions?
I absolutely hate that the majority of job descriptions don't. Unfortunately, that has now become the trend. They don't list. However, my rule is by the second interview, so if a phone screen or something like that counts as the first, by the second interview, you should feel very comfortable asking for at least a salary range or budget for the role. If they are not comfortable sharing that with you by that point, huge red flag back out. You're not going to be getting what you're worth. It's just the trend of the market now that we've moved away from it being in the job ads, but it's still very important that it be upfront. If you're not even finding out what the salary is until you get to an offer, that's a really major red flag. But you can't always expect it to be in the ad. And that it's so common now for it not to be there that I don't count that as a red flag anymore, because it's really just industry standard practice to not include it.
Awesome. All right, well, look at that. We are right on time. For those who did not, I think there were just two right now. Some might fly in, but for those who did not get your question answered, don't worry, we'll include it in the follow-up email. All right, well, thank you all so much for joining. I'll also include the consult link as well. If you didn't get a chance to open it right now, I'll include that in the follow-up. And then if you have any questions, John is copied on that email. And we are humans behind those emails that we send. So I promise we'll get your questions answered. John, any last words for everyone?
I hear Brittany's phone ringing already.
Yes.
So good. Please do.
Heads
Please
up, Britt.
because there's absolutely a ton of value here. This is a tiny fraction of what's there. And Brittany's also just very pleasant to talk to. So go ahead and pick up the phone. You have nothing to lose. And if you're on, again, I'm making the assumption that if you are on this webinar, if you cared enough to spend an hour of your time on something like this, it is because you are out there working, trying. We want to help. Book that appointment.
Absolutely. That's awesome. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining. And we hope to see you again soon on some of our other events that are coming up this month. So if you're not on I'll also include a link to where you can keep track of all of our free trainings, free events, if you're not already on that. So thank you all so much. We'll hope to see you again soon.
See you soon.
Bye, guys.